Hi, Bethany Clement, Elysian Properties.
I'm Cody Touchette with Caliber Home Loans. Today we're going to talk about what we do to help protect our buyers inside the real estate transaction. So Bethany, why don't you go first? What do you do to protect your buyers?
Well, when I'm protecting the buyer, the number one thing I want to protect is your investment, buying a home. I mean, buying a home is one of the biggest investments that we're going to make possibly. And there's just a few ways that I do that. Number one is to be your consultant. I'm going to be advising you about the whole transaction, and there's a few ways that I do that. So there's things like the market. What's going on in the market? Is the value of my home, is this a good value for the home? Is this overpriced? Things like that. Strategies about how to win that deal. When you find the perfect house, when we find the perfect place for you, what are the strategies that we're going to do to get you that home? And then the contract. The contract is very important. When I fill out a contract, I make sure that it is ironclad. There's no loopholes, that you're protected that way. There's another way that I protect you, and that's to ensure a smooth close by meticulously following the transaction step by step. Now, there's a lot of pieces to this whole real estate transaction when you're buying a home. And a lot of it you may not know that happens behind the scenes, and that's great. We're protecting you by doing that. But one of those ways is making sure that the whole thing is smooth by making sure everyone talks to each other, and that's what I do. I make sure that the lender and the appraiser and the inspector and escrow, we're all talking to each other to make your transaction, make your life easier, and that's how we protect you. So many pieces to it, and you know what? There are going to be some bumps along the way. There might be some issues, and it is my job to problem solve that and make sure that we move forward to the close. So those are some of the ways that I protect buyers. Cody, how do you protect them?
You bet. There's a couple of things we think about when we think about the real estate transaction. Number one, we want to protect your time and your emotions. We do that by a really solid pre-approval job up front inside the transaction. So before you go out and look for a house, before you mentally move in and buy that house in your mind, we make sure it's something you can afford and you qualified for. So we get all of that information up front. Pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns, all the things that somebody would need to have to go into underwriting so that we know for sure when we issue that pre-approval letter that they're not going to be out wasting their time looking at homes that are either one, too high of price so they couldn't afford that, and then you get a little bit emotionally involved in a home that maybe you couldn't afford, and now everything doesn't compare when you start looking at your actual price range. Or on the flip side of that, sometimes people have too low of a budget and they think, oh, I couldn't afford more than X, when really they can afford more. And so what ends up happening is if they're only looking at a home at X and it's not really matching their guidelines and they aren't going to be real happy with that home, they can get frustrated and not feel like they can afford a house in this market when they might be prejudging and not knowing that they actually have power to go much higher than what they're looking at. We also want to make sure we protect your money. When we protect your money, we're doing that same really great pre-approval job. In a step beyond that, we pre-underwrite the file so that you've got the real safe, secure feeling that when you write that earnest money check, that it's not going to go away, right? It's going to be used for you at your closing. And then finally, we protect your ability to actually be the best offer. So by pre-underwriting the file, having an outward conversation with the listing agent to let them know how strong of a buyer you are, working together with your buyer's agent to make sure that we structure that offer in a way that works for the lender, works for the buyer, and works best for the seller, then we have a really great job, or we have a really great result of getting your offer accepted as well. So those are kind of the three main areas that we help protect the buyer.
Perfect. So you've heard some of the ways that we both work really hard to protect you as the buyer, and you're going to have some more questions, maybe some specific questions we haven't covered. That's very likely. So message us, comment below. We'd love to help you and your specific needs and your specific questions about how we work really hard to protect you in this crazy market. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.